Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Chris Martin, Brandon Mahoney, and David Horsewood. And I want to ask the question, what is the difference between being thoughtful and thorough or procrastinating and avoidant? Chris, can you kick us off?
Well, I mean, this is one of those topics where I think if we're being honest with each other, and I hope we are, I think everybody kind of struggles with on some level, whether it's, and it just in the case of running a business, these are things that we probably confront in some form or fashion every day. For me, for example, anything that has to do with accounting and numbers and money, and even though that should be like the most important thing that I pay attention to, and I do pay attention to it, but it's really not the thing that I most enjoy about doing my job. If I had to pinpoint something in my daily life that I avoid and procrastinate, it's probably those kinds of things. The stuff that I embrace and that I feel like I'm really purposeful and thoughtful about are the things that I most enjoy, whether that's interacting with clients or working the phones for a client or building a piece of content for them. Those are the things that I really enjoy, and those are the things that I embrace. And in the end, I think that in some respects, my preference for doing some things over other things shows in the final product that I offer. Mm-hmm. Because for the things that I really enjoy, I put a lot of energy and love and thought and purpose into it, and I think it shows it on the as in the resulting product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I were to focus on the working world, and that's what most of us are mostly focused on during the daytime. I think if you are mastering something, if you're putting yourself forward as a professional, then you're in a constant state of thoughtfulness regarding the stuff that you're supposed to have mastered. Okay, so as long as you're doing that, then you can readily respond on the fly in a professional way, as well as you would have responded if you'd had an extended amount of time to think about it, if that makes sense. On the other hand, in the professional working world, every now and then you get thrown something, and a professional needs to be able to say, I will need some time to give a professional response to this, whether that's a response verbally or whether that's work product or whatever the case may be. You have to be professional enough to not do what I so often see on LinkedIn. If somebody asks you to do something, say yes and figure it out later. That's about as unprofessional as it gets, in my opinion, because that person is counting on you to be able to do it, not to be able to figure out how to do it, hopefully.
Brandon?
I'm sitting here thinking about when I procrastinate versus when I get excited about something and I immediately try to jump in and get it done. And for me, like, I love coaching. It's what I enjoy doing. So when my team comes to me and they need my help for something, I get excited about it. I jump into it. On the opposite side of that, there's also the almost like the disciplinary side where if they're not doing something right, you have to jump in. And I tend to, it's a hesitation, but it's also, I get stuck in the data of saying, okay, how do I justify going to this individual and saying, hey, you're not meeting your numbers. You're not getting these results. And I get into analysis paralysis where it's like, I have to justify that conversation. So it's like, I feel like I'm almost being overly thoughtful. And that's slowing me down from just jumping into the conversation the same way I say, hey, you did a great job. I should be able to jump in the same way and go, you know what? Hey, we've made some mistakes here. And it's something I've actively tried to reflect on and I've combated with myself, but it's almost the opposite of, I don't try to ignore it. I feel it necessary that I justify everything I'm about to say. So it slows me down from actually having the conversation.
I have something similar. I've had to make a rule that I'm only allowed to proofread something twice before I send it, because otherwise I'll get so into, let me proofread it. Oh, let me make sure I proofread. Did I proofread it? Let me proofread it. And it gets to the point where I don't send it. I'm letting the perfect get in the way of the good. So I had to make a rule to not get into that procrastinating, avoiding sending, because I was being so thorough.
Absolutely.
I absolutely hear that. Although, Brandon, I think I would let you off the hook as far as the example that you used for procrastination, because it doesn't sound, when I think of procrastination, I think of you don't want to have that conversation, so you go play a round of golf. You don't want to have that conversation, so you decide to go to the gym, or do something that is
Vacuum.
completely. Yeah. You want to just do something else because the thing that you're going to do is hard or unpleasant or difficult, or you view it as difficult or whatever. When in your case, it sounds like you're not putting it off just because you're afraid of it or that it's unpleasant. It sounds like you're putting it off because you really are being thoughtful about it. So it's kind of, I guess what I would say is that the example that you used of procrastination, I would say let yourself off the hook a little bit, because it doesn't sound like it's what I would think of as procrastination, where you really are just like doing anything in the world to avoid something. I mean, in your case, you're actually applying brain power to a difficult situation in your head, trying to navigate the best way of handling it. And I think that's being really thoughtful and not procrastination. So good for you.
I'll take that win. Yeah.
Yeah, I might just add, you've probably all met someone who is chronically late. They're just always late, whatever the case may be. They were born 10 minutes late, never going to catch up. And the reality is, everyone who is always on time for one main reason. They plan on arriving early. Okay, so procrastination is really only a problem if you are missing deadlines, or if in your heart of hearts, your quality of work is lower than it could have been if you'd started earlier. So somebody who says, well, I did the best I could. Well, did you do the best you can with the time you had left because you waited until the last minute? Or if you had started a week earlier, could this be dramatically better than it is? So I think that's really the only time this is a problem. For example, people can start filing their taxes now. But if you decide you want to wait till April, that's not really procrastination. It's not due. Nobody cares until mid-April. So that's just understanding when deadlines are and how long tasks take. But if you wait until the day before the taxes are due, and then you do the best you can with the time you have left, or you get angry with your accountant because you didn't give them enough time to thoroughly go through your return, well, that's on you at that point. So that's just the qualifier that I think we should all hold up to ourselves. Did I do the best I could, or just with the time I had left? And is my quality of work suffering because I wait till the last minute?
Well, and what about if you wait and I don't know if anybody else, but I know for me, if I have something on my plate that I know is due at some point, the longer I carry it around, the more that I'm like the mental energy of I need to do that. I need to do that. And it's much easier for me to just say, you know what, let me get that off my plate. If I can do it now, let me get it done now.
Sure. Yeah. And I would not dispute with that at all, because if it's weighing on you, it's distracting you. And we all know that you truly can't think two thoughts at once. People who have that mindset, I've got 1,000 thoughts in my head. No, you don't. You have one thought in your head. And that one thought is, I have 1,000 thoughts in my head. You're not really thinking 1,000 thoughts. You're just distracted by a whole bunch of stuff.
When I'll share a funny little story about procrastination. When I was at CBS News, I used to work for the evening news, and a lot of the editors at the evening news were kind of they liked the adrenaline of the deadline, and so they would get all their materials in the morning, let's say, and they wouldn't even start editing until 5:30 in the afternoon. And so you'd walk through the editing bays, and you'd see like at 4 o'clock, and you'd see an editor there with, like in his chair asleep. And you'd go, hey, Larry, what are you doing? And his answer would be, I'm editing.
I heard,
he was just waiting until, he could cut it really close. He never missed his deadline, but he liked the adrenaline of having to, just really pinch himself all the way at the end.
How to increase your cortisol level artificially.
I guess.
That reminds me of something I heard a long time ago, that people who say I work best under pressure, what they sometimes mean is it's the only time I work.
True that. True that. Well, that is our 10 minutes. So I'm going to cut us off there. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I appreciate it. I don't know, procrastination or avoidance versus being thorough. Have to think some more about that. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.